Welcome to the Growing Gorillas podcast. I'm Kisa Davison.
And I'm Travis Davison.
And this podcast is all about parenting. The ups, the downs.
The in-betweens.
We have absolutely no idea what we're doing.
But likely neither do you.
So kick back, relax, and enjoy.
Special thank you to the Cleared Hot podcast for use of the studio and Andy Stump for all of his invaluable information.
If you'd like to learn more about Cleared Hot, visit clearedhotpodcast.com.
Let's do this.
Drink LMNT. LMNT is our podcast sponsor today. It's a healthy alternative to sugary electrolyte drinks. Every grab-and-go stick pack replaces all the essential electrolytes that you need with no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, or any other junk. I drink LMNT every day, and so does Travis, to support...
Because it's delicious.
Well, I was going to say, I drink it to support my hydration. I would say my low-carb diet, my fast, my workouts, etc., but none of those things are true. I just drink it because it's good, and I need water in the morning. My favorite flavor is definitely the orange one, and the green one, and the pink one.
Yes, you're saying raspberry, orange, and lime.
Correct.
Which I don't disagree with you on. However, the watermelon is delicious.
And let's not forget, the chili lime is good with tequila, as is the habanero mango, I think. The two spicy ones are really good with tequila. Not recommended in the morning, but still good with tequila.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of like, I guess, counterbalances.
Totally. It's a math equation. It works out somehow.
I don't think Rob Wolf necessarily is going to stand behind that.
I know, but he's not here, so...
That's true.
I'm the official on the subject. But listen, here's the cool part. As a member of our Growing Gorillas community, LMNT has a very, very, very cool offer for you. You can let them know that you are interested in trying out a sample pack. All you have to do is cover the cost of shipping, so you can get yours.
Which is what, like $5?
I don't know.
I think it's like $5. Anyways.
I just charge things on my credit card. I don't look at it.
Cheap.
So here's the URL. drinklmnt.com/growing gorillas. Now remember, growing gorillas, you have to spell all the way out, and there's 2 G's right in the middle, so don't screw it up. drinklmnt.com/growing gorillas.
And in the words of Stella Davison, hydrate or dihydrate.
I feel like LMNT should adopt that as their new tagline.
Well, they just did.
Okay. So we're parents.
Yep.
We're coaches.
Yep.
We have survived at least 21 years of this thing called parenting.
More than 21, but yes.
And for whatever reason, because we're also coaches, people seem to think that we know what we're doing.
Well, we do have 4 pretty amazing kids.
Right?
So I think maybe they think that based on what they see, and maybe it's not as on the surface as you think as far as being coaches and somehow having the keys to raising kids. Maybe it's the fact that we have 21 plus years experience raising kids and we didn't screw the 4 up that we had too bad yet.
Or maybe the parents who come to us and ask us for advice or dump their hearts into our coffee cups, maybe they're just so desperate they'll talk to anyone.
It might be a little bit of both. They for sure are desperate, but I think all parents are.
Right.
It's the one thing you don't want to screw up in life.
I know, your kids.
Correct.
So we did do a decent job.
I think we did a superb job in raising our 4 children. I think that we've had a huge impact on the lives of hundreds of children through the gym.
Agreed.
Jiu-Jitsu specifically, but the other martial arts and the other activities that take place in and out of the gym. But I was just having this conversation actually with Stella's new judo coach. We were in Rhode Island last weekend.
Big Surge.
Just a couple days ago. Yeah, I'm repping Stella's new team.
Oh yeah, Mayo Quanchi. Ooh, ooh.
So, no, but we were talking about is, there's the financial side of running a dojo or a gym or a club or an academy, whatever you want to refer to your place of business as. And most people in that industry struggle to make a dollar anyways. But the conversation I was having with Serge was, the long hours, the stress, all of the heartache that's gone into like the last 13 years since we opened our first location here in Kalispell, Montana. It's never been for the money. Like it's just not what it has to do with. And I used an example. I'll just go ahead and make the example here because it sounds like you're a little more humble than I am about the Growing Gorillas program or about the job that we've done with our 4 children. And I brought up the example of one of our former students who was just a hard kid to deal with, only child, the type of kid who would hurt other kids if he thought no one was looking.
I know who you're talking about.
Cheat at games, humongous poor sport if he lost.
And his parents are super smart.
Correct.
Very well socialized.
Yep.
I mean,
all that's true. But the point of the story was I still remember like it was yesterday when his grandfather came up to me with tears in his eyes and was like, I just want to thank you for saving my grandson's life.
Yeah.
That's why we do it. And that's what I was explaining to Serge. It's like, the Facebook message that I got the other day that I showed you from one of our homeschooled kids who I haven't seen in years. She was I don't even think she was a teenager the last time I saw her in the gym. And she went to the trouble of finding me, sending me this long message about how important the years in the gym with me were and that everything that she learned about respect and discipline. And so I do think that we have something to contribute. I think we have been contributing through the gym for 13 years. And I think the Growing Gorillas kids program is part of that contribution. I mean, it's obviously the program that we developed. I guess it would have been more than 13 years ago. But it's what we raised our kids with. I mean, that was originally the inception of that program, was a need to replace our kids' jiu-jitsu program, which we left behind in Camas, Washington when we moved here. And, at the time, our intention wasn't anything other than raising our kids. And then that snowballed into a program that we then incorporated into our gym, and then into our second gym, and into our third gym, and then, eventually into,
And I mean, I guess you and I didn't really talk a whole lot about, full disclosure, we haven't, over the course of the last 21 plus years, there's not a whole lot of conversation that we've had about how are we going to deal with the kids? What are we going to do? Like, what's our strategy? I think naturally we've been on the same team because we're of like minds. And when they were younger, I think you defaulted to me because I was their primary caretaker, just because I'm a mom and that's what moms do. And as they have become older, you've taken more of a front seat, more of a lead in parenting them because well, especially because we have 3 boys, that they need more of you than they do me. But my point is that early on when we opened the gym, we didn't have, I remember telling the kids, like, look, there's some kids who grow up on a farm and they just learn to be farmers. Y'all are growing up in a gym. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to grow up in a gym, and that's how it's going to be. And I knew that they weren't going to have, I mean, Stella was in Girl Scouts, Joe was in Boy Scouts, but I don't think Ricky and Ted were in Boy Scouts at all, were they?
I don't believe so, and I don't think Joe was in it to win it when it came to Boy Scouts.
No, he was not.
I mean, all the kids dabbled, right? I mean, Stella dabbled in ballet for less than a year.
By force.
The boys dabbled in football. Stella played soccer. They did hip hop. Like, they played the violin. So
I guess my point is that when we put together the Growing Gorillas program, what I was looking for was a curriculum for my own children to have everything that they wouldn't have access to because we spent all of our time working. And so what could we put into this kids program that would give them Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, sports, after school activities, a life skills activity? How could we put it all together? And I think we did a really good job of that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I'm getting at is I think we did a fantastic job. I think we have the best kids martial arts program in the world.
Amen.
Bar none. And I've been around the world, and I've been to plenty of gyms. And, since this is the first podcast, I think it's important that we kind of talk about what is this podcast? What is this program? I mean, obviously at its center is a curriculum to teach the martial art of jiu-jitsu to children.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. And I think anybody who tunes in or has been a part of the program or reached out to one of the gyms expects that. People expect that if they bring their children to us, that we will teach them how to do jiu-jitsu. And we no doubt will. And the program definitely does that. But I think what is unique about the program is that it does all that, and it does it in a very interesting and entertaining way in kids' language, incorporating creative games and things like that hold their attention.
Spinach in the pancakes.
I've never had spinach in my pancakes.
You don't know. Maybe you have had spinach in your pancakes because I sneak it in.
Maybe.
Just like those kids have life skills, we sneak it in to all the games.
But what the program has that people don't, I think, initially expect or are surprised by is, I think the next most obvious thing is the life skill component, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, your sister does a great job of writing the stories every month. So they're original stories based on life skills that we've decided are life skills that we want children to have. Jay, I'll give Jay at Red Rocket Rebellion a shout out, does a great job with the illustrations and I think we do a good job coming up with creative homework and success charts, both for the children, but then also for the parents' benefit. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, where I think it really becomes something completely different than what people are expecting, is when we start to then take that program that's teaching kids a functional martial art and useful life skills, and then we roll that into their ability to move through that and into positions where they're learning how to become assistant coaches, they're learning how to be teachers, they're learning what it means to have a healthy lifestyle, they're learning about community service and what it means to be a leader in their community. And then along the way, things like, having a job. Like, oh, I have to show up. Oh, I have to clock my hours. Oh, I get paid this much money. If I want to purchase this thing, I need to save up my money.
Or every time I get paid for a class, I can take my 2 monkey bucks and buy a Gatorade.
That's the old pay scale. It's 5 and 7 now.
Oh, I heard about this.
It's 5 and 7. Yeah.
And you know that Bella asked me the other day what would happen when there's the half hours. Because, it's the 1 hour for the regular class and the half hour if they assist in
She's not very good at math, huh?
leadership. And she said, so are you going to get monkey buck coins? And I said, no, we're just going to rip those dollars in half.
Yeah, we'll give you the other half at the next half-hour class.
Well, we eventually had the conversation that that they add up. And she said, but what if they add up and there's
50 cents? Then we'll round it up.
I said, Bella, are we having a conversation about your pay scale while you're supposed to be coaching? Because that's not what I'm paying you for.
So, yeah, I mean,
but it's not unlike, everything that we have incorporated into the Growing Gorillas program is not unlike what we have or we had at our house. Everybody has chores. You do your chores. Everybody has responsibility not only to the household, but also to the family, to each other. We expect you to go to school. We expect you to learn. There's expectations. And that's what most families also, I think, strive to have. But it can be difficult, as we know, to do it alone.
Right. Yeah. It's not only difficult to do it alone, but it's not easy to get kids to freely participate in chores and group activities, and having something like the martial arts, something that they do want to be a part of as an incentive for that good behavior at home, is a useful tool.
Yeah.
And it's
for sure.
It's a way to help parents and kids learn how to work together to get the results that they both want.
So, rewind. We moved to Montana. We don't start a gym.
Correct. We didn't move here to start a gym. We moved here to build houses.
Well, I know, but pretend like we didn't start the gym.
Okay.
Pretend like there's no Growing Gorillas.
Okay.
What would we have done with those little tard farts?
We probably like what most people do. We would have put them in sports. We would put them in dance. We would put them in
here and there, everything.
Learning an instrument. But the problem with all of that, with sports, the problem is there's lots of problems, but the most obvious problem is they're seasonal.
Right.
So that's a problem. The other part with sports that becomes more apparent as the kids get older is they become exclusive to the kids that started the sport early, stuck with the sport, or are physically gifted. Maybe they're the tallest kid, so yeah, they make the basketball team, or they're the biggest kid, so they make the football team, or they're the fastest kid. But that's a small percentage of kids, and the further up that ladder you go, the smaller that percentage becomes until you get to the college level. So that makes that different and harder. Whereas with martial arts, you can start when you're 75 if you want. There's a place for everybody.
35?
Yeah.
When did you start? 25?
25. And that's just not true of sports. Where would I start wrestling at 25? I'm not going to walk onto a college at 25 and be able to be a wrestler.
Right.
So that's different. But the other piece that's missing is that life skills component. You're not going to get that at dance. You're not going to get that at guitar practice. You're not going to get that at soccer practice.
The other piece that I think a lot of those sports leagues, and particularly at the high school level, actually, even before that, what they're missing is we do, as coaches, we do a lot of training of parents. This is what we expect of you when you attend this tournament with your child. Oh, sorry, do you have a black belt in jiu-jitsu? Are you an SBG coach? Okay, well then, no, we don't want you to talk to your child, except to tell them you're proud of them, they did a great job, and ask them what they want to do next. I mean, that's it. And for sure, that doesn't happen in any of the other sporting events, the training of the parents.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, back to your original question, what would we have done? We had already, I was already actively involved in jiu-jitsu by the time we had moved to Montana. I think I was 8 years in. I mean, I was shortly after we moved here, I got my brown belt.
Is that true? Yeah.
And, fortunately, we had started TED first in jiu-jitsu. And at the time, and this speaks to jiu-jitsu schools all over the world, most of them aren't set up or equipped to have a kids program. Most of them just choose not to because just like parenting, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. And so most people are like, you know what, I don't want to have a kids program. I'm just gonna have adults.
Yeah.
And in fairness to people who are listening and maybe going, oh yeah, I'm too lazy to have a kids program, which is what I'm saying. And they'll justify it in other, rationalize it in other ways. But even when we started, I didn't want to put a lot of effort into a kids program because I know that kids are a lot of work. What I didn't know at the time is that it's the most rewarding part of the gym.
Right.
It's also the part of the gym that ultimately, if you're one of those guys or girls who's like, I just want really good competitors, or I want to be well known for having world champions, or, whatever, fill in the blank. The reality is this is where jiu-jitsu could learn something from sport, which is in all those other sports, the kids start at like 4 and 5, right? Like you don't start wrestling in high school or college.
I mean, you can, but
you don't make the Olympics by starting a sport at 26. And so I didn't realize that until after we got started. And actually it was Sean, our accountant, who really kind of was steering us in that direction of, hey, kids are where it's at. Kids are where it's at. And I guess going back to what I was originally starting to say is my coach, Matt Thornton, in Portland, there was not a kid. We had no kids in the gym. We barely even had adults because, but the thing is I knew jiu-jitsu was awesome, and I wanted our kids to be involved in jiu-jitsu. Not unlike other dads who want their kids to be involved in hunting or football or
something
cars.
That you're passionate about, that you've gotten so much benefit from. Of course you want your kids to be involved in it.
So we went to the trouble of, finding a gym that wasn't even affiliated with my gym.
Mel Locke. What was the name of that gym?
Universal.
Universal.
Yeah.
Is it still Universal?
I believe so.
Mel Locke, Camas, Washington.
Yeah. Pedro Sauer, black belt.
Oh, yeah.
And so Ted started, and then the twins started, and then we moved. And, I don't know if, I don't know when or if we would have had a kids program at our gym had it not been for the fact that we had 3 kids who were already participating and then a 4th child
who needed
it. And we needed them too, because truth be told, like back then, the trajectory would have looked a lot different had it not been for the fact that we had 4 kids to seed the kids program with.
Right. That's what I like to say. Back in the good old days, the kids program of Growing Gorillas had 4 kids, and they all had the last name Davison.
Correct. And
only 3 of them were happy to be there.
I think they were all happy to be there at a younger age.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And just like everything else, I mean, personalities develop, people, you know, develop their interests and stuff like that. And they all had the opportunity and they all benefited from their time in the gym and their time doing jiu-jitsu. For some, it became, you know,
Everything.
a passion.
Right.
And, you know,
Ricky.
And now it's, you know, potentially a livelihood.
So the other important part, I think, that I want to make sure that people know and understand is that, well, let's backtrack a little bit, or let me just put that out there. Parenting is difficult. We were fortunate that we have not only this curriculum that we developed, and we put thought into it, not just for our own children, but because we had a business to run. And so we put thought into the Growing Gorillas curriculum for everyone, for all the kids. And at the end of the day, especially when they're going through those tough ages, we leaned on our coaches to help us through that parenting, through raising those kids, as much as other parents lean on us.
Right.
What am I going to do with this kid?
Yeah, well, that's another kind of benefit of being part of that community, is that you end up with friends for your kids, and you end up with friends for yourself, and then you end up with people who have similar interests and similar values, and people that you trust, and people that you can.
And how many times have you had parents come to you and say, could you please talk to so-and-so about this?
Every week.
Right. And we did that to Coach Gus and Coach Leah with our own kids. So that community, I think, was really important for us raising the kids as well. And I'm so deeply, deeply grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of the curriculum that I think is important for people to understand is that we created a lot of it based on the work that we did with Ted at a young age in occupational therapy, even physical therapy, with his cortical dysplasia and his seizure disorder, and the gross motor skills that the kids do in Micro Monkeys. Speaking of which, are you looking forward to your Micro Monkeys class tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Are you excited about it these days? Getting more excited about it? How many do you have in that class now? 3 and 4 year olds?
20.
Holy shit buckets.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. How many assistants do you have?
I have 3. I don't know if they're teenagers. I think they're early teens. I have 3 12 to 14 year olds.
And 20 3 and 4 year olds?
Correct.
That's impressive. I feel like we need a moment of silence for that.
I'm pretty good with kids.
You're very good with kids. Very good with kids. But gross motor skills is what we start with.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the basics of, here's how you stand on the line. Here's how you follow directions. Here's how you have friends. Here's how you interact with people.
Here's how you pay attention. Here's how you focus. Here's
the games.
Yep.
Right? So, Jiu-Jitsu virus. Okay, on your marks, get set. Goldfish. Do you do that to them? You don't play Jiu-Jitsu virus probably, do you?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
In which class?
All of them, but the Micro Monkeys all the time.
But you don't teach the full classes anymore, do you? You only teach the leadership team?
I teach the full Micro Monkeys class, and I teach chimps, spiders, juniors, and teens, leadership team.
Do you play Jiu-Jitsu virus with those guys?
No.
Oh, okay. Do you play Jiu-Jitsu virus with the micros?
Yes.
You do?
Of course.
Coach Travis plays Jiu-Jitsu virus with Micro Monkeys.
Yep.
You best step up, girl.
I also play Stampede.
You do?
Mm-hmm. I play pool noodle freeze tag, where they have to get inside the closed guard, and HAL to get unfrozen. I play all kinds of games with the micro monkeys. I'm pretty sure that if and when we have the next Gorilla Cup, my micro monkeys will pretty much obliterate everyone else's micro monkeys because I actually teach them jiu-jitsu.
Touche.
So there.
Good work. Okay. Coach Cody, Coach Kate, he just threw down the gauntlet.
I think Cody teaches jiu-jitsu. I'm sure that Gus teaches jiu-jitsu.
So maybe it's just Coach Kate that sucks?
It's kind of sounding like that.
I'm going to tell her that.
Go ahead. I'm not afraid.
Okay. So back to the curriculum. Or back to, I guess, why we did what we did, which was that Ted, our oldest, 6 months old, starts having seizures. We don't know why. We don't know how. But somehow we muddle through and figure out that he just needs a lot of extra help. And that means he needs therapy not only from qualified therapists, but he also needs activities outside of therapy to, I don't know.
Sensory integration. I mean,
grow up.
We have kids that are all over the spectrum from, slightly autistic, maybe they have ADHD, maybe they don't, to the point of, extreme disabilities.
Yeah.
And
I don't know any sports program, high school, middle school, private, public, that welcomes kids with disabilities or even just nuances, I like to call them, the way that we do.
Right. No, that's, yeah. I mean, that was my earlier point.
I guess the prize in that Cracker Jack box is that type of curriculum actually helps all the kids, which is unfortunate that some of those other programs don't get that, because is that a rising tide raises all boats? Is that how that goes? Is that appropriate?
That is the saying, that a rising tide raises all boats. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you ultimately have to look at what the motive is, what's the goal? What is, if you're the head coach at the high school football team, how do you measure your success at work?
Right. Are you trying to get
a state championship?
Yeah.
I
was going to say Super Bowl, but that,
I guess
that's not
if you make
appropriate.
$1 million coaching college football, is your job to help make sure that your players get an education and that they're capable of balancing their checkbook when they're done?
Probably not.
No. And I don't think that the people that hire and fire head football coaches are particularly interested in your character development of the players. I don't know that that's the end game there. So
no, and it's a good point when you look across martial arts programs, let's just narrow it down to martial arts programs. I feel like some of them are there to try to create champions. They're looking to go to, I don't know, the Olympics to get some Olympians. Is that Taekwondo? Do they do Olympics? Wrestling? Some of them are just there to stay within their bubble. And I'm trying to be super humble, or I'm trying to not be humble, I guess. And I am trying to toot our horn that I think we do a really good job of trying to raise a community full of children the same way we would raise our own children.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that where the philosophical difference is the idea that it's one or the other. Because I'm certainly not sitting here.
That's a good point.
Discounting the value and competitiveness or the value in winning.
No, but I think there are different. I mean, look at our 4 kids, right? Not all 4 of them are going to be world champions, and not because they're not capable of it, but because not all 4 of them want it.
Right.
And
yeah.
so,
But what I'm saying is, you don't have to have a program that is geared towards one or the other. If you're teaching correctly and you're providing opportunities correctly, and you allow people to rise to their potential and to their goals, then it doesn't matter. You don't have to exclude the kids that physically aren't capable of being a world champion. You don't have to exclude the kids that are more interested in becoming a bioengineer than a jiu-jitsu world champion. They can still participate in jiu-jitsu. They can still be part of that community, and it doesn't...
And they can still get benefit from it.
For sure. For sure. The benefit of the least important thing about jiu-jitsu is winning a world championship. Like, that's the least important thing.
Right.
It might be the most important thing to a particular individual, but in terms of the actual activity itself, that's the least important thing. Mm-hmm. And the real benefits of training jiu-jitsu really come from the side effect of getting on the mat, making yourself vulnerable, learning what your limitations are, learning how to deal with difficulty, learning how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
Right.
Those are the important lessons that come out of jiu-jitsu. Those are the things that
and by getting on the mat, consistency. Show up, show up, show up, show up. Yes.
Yeah. And that would be another benefit. That would be another side effect of participating in something like jiu-jitsu, is it teaches you discipline. It teaches you consistency. It teaches you how to show up when you don't want to show up.
So what about when, because we do have a child who didn't want to show up for many years.
Right. Well, I mean, everyone has children that don't want to show up for school.
I know, but remember Joe?
Mm-hmm.
I remember when he used to throw himself on the mat.
I do.
And he was such a nightmare.
Yep. And it's hard as a parent who is a coach and an owner to have their own child behave in the way that makes you worry that the other parents are going to be like, oh, the owner's kids don't even like this, or look at how misbehaved the coach's kid is.
Right. Oh God, that used to drive me nuts. And it drove me nuts because I didn't know how to deal with it. So hindsight 2020, how would you have dealt with that differently? And by the way, for the audience, Joe, how old was he? Like 11, 12 at the time? 6?
He was, no, when he started becoming...
I feel like he was in juniors.
Difficult to deal with at the gym. He was pre-teens. You know, it was pre-teen, became a teenager. That was, you know.
And he just decided this wasn't anything he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So he threw himself down. He was a total dick throughout all of class. And Gus was his coach at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one story that Gus had him do burpees, and he did burpees for an hour.
Yeah, he's stubborn.
I know. It's that red hair.
Stubborn.
So how would you have dealt with that differently, hindsight 2020? Or would you have? Because I had no idea how to handle it at the time. And it was every day I would try and have a conversation. And some days I was in a good place and I could have a decent conversation with him. And some days I was tired and I was in a bad place. And I was like, get your fucking ass on the mat or you're grounded forever. Or worst days, I would say, forget it. Just go to the office. Do your homework, read a book. I was never consistent because I didn't know how to deal with it.
I don't know that I would have dealt with it a whole lot differently. I think he'd been involved in the gym for
since he was 4.
Yeah.
5.
8 years, 9 years. And I feel like we made sure that it was something he didn't want to do anymore. And when it became apparent that this wasn't his jam, then we made arrangements and agreements that, okay, that's fine. You know, if you don't want to do jiu-jitsu, that's okay. But what are you doing instead? Like,
right.
You have to do something. Like, you're not just going to sit at home and play video games all day.
He didn't do anything though, did he?
I
mean, I guess he didn't do anything that we enrolled him in. Like it wasn't a formal thing. What he ended up doing was exploring his writing, and he ended up figuring out how that music stuff works.
Right.
And becoming a musician.
Yeah.
Which is strange because neither one of us are musicians, and music's a part of our family life, but not because we create it, but because we listen to it. That was kind of on his own.
Yeah. And that worked out. You know, it worked out. He found something that he likes, something that he's passionate about, and he has a creative outlet. And, you know, he continues to use the gym. He continues to exercise. He continues to do all that stuff. So, I mean, as long as he's, you know, staying active and physically fit, I'm okay with that. I mean, a lot of people say, you know, jiu-jitsu's for everybody. It is, but I think in the sense that jiu-jitsu is something that everybody can do.
Right.
Not jiu-jitsu is something everybody has to do.
Right.
I think for most people, it would be very beneficial for them to do jiu-jitsu. And I think for a 100%. Lot of people, it's something that they do want to do and they should do it.
Well, now that I think about it though, I mean, maybe we didn't even really realize, again, back to the whole intro, we don't really have any idea what we're actually doing. But like, there's no formula that we followed, and we certainly didn't lay out a plan. But we did at some point decide to back off of Joe and let him figure out who he was and what he wanted, independent from what the family was doing and the family was interested in. And then I think we also made sure over time that he knew that we supported him and we accepted that and we were proud of him for it.
Yeah.
And that didn't come from a plan, but that just came from a place of love, because we love that kid.
Of course we do.
He's so cute.
He needs a haircut.
He does, but he's so sweet. Oh my God, he's so sweet.
He's a pretty sweet kid.
He's also taller than you.
So are all the kids.
Except Stella.
Yeah, except Stella.
I think I'm still taller than Stella.
I thought last time I checked that she was taller than you.
Lies. All lies. I must have been slumping.
I think she's taller, but...
In any case, he's a great human being. They all are.
So what's the gist of this podcast or future podcasts or?
So this whole podcast is supposed to be about the fact that no one really knows what to do, that we're all learning from each other, that we have a community that we can lean on to ask questions of, to share experiences with. And every child is different, which is why there's no fucking magic formula. Every kid is different. And in my experience over 21 plus years, if everything you do and everything you say and all your interactions with your children come from a place of love, then chances are you're going to be just fine. Being able to access that place of love sometimes means that you have to work a little bit on yourself as well, because it turns out that we were also raised by other imperfect humans. And then I guess the other part of it is that there's some really funny stories. And at the end of the day, when I look back on the last 21 plus years, I want to remember the good times more than I remember the bad times.
So we started a podcast so that we could archive our personal history?
100%.
Okay.
Do you want to tell a funny story that you remember about our kids? What's your favorite Davison kid story? There's a million of them. What's your favorite?
Oh, gosh.
And is there one that incorporates all four of the children?
All four of them? Well, there's
I used to feel like I only had stories about the boys, and then come to find out, Stella was the mastermind. She was like, what's that Hunger Games thing? The game master?
You're talking to the wrong person about, if you bring up like Harry Potter, the Hunger Games,
I know.
Lord of the Rings.
If it doesn't have to do with the outsiders, it doesn't exist.
Well, I know a lot about a lot of things, but I don't really know that much about the Hunger Games, Harry Potter, or Lord of the Rings.
Anywho, turns out Stella was the mastermind behind all the antics that the boys used to get in trouble for.
I'm not surprised.
What a little bitch.
Behind every disaster, there is a woman.
That's not true.
Oh, I mean, I didn't say that. You can't prove that I said that.
It's on camera. All the cameras.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Okay, so what's your favorite Davison kid story? It doesn't have to include all of them.
I used to enjoy watching Joe walk out onto the deck to pee into the front yard when we lived on a busy corner street.
And he was like 3.
Yep. There's a lot of Joe stories in tidy whities and neighborhoods and being brought home by the police naked and things like that. I like the story of all 4 kids thinking it was a good idea to walk across the semi-frozen pond. That'd be another example of Stella orchestrating a disaster.
And Joe almost died that day, by the way.
Yep. I like the story about Ted deciding he was going to mummify himself with duct tape.
That was the best.
I like that the boys decided that they would paint themselves with spray paint.
Black and silver.
Yeah. I like the fact that we forgot Stella at the hotel.
I feel like that's your brother's fault, actually.
Well, whoever's fault it was made for a good story.
It was. She was crying. I felt bad.
Yeah. I find out stories that I didn't even experience from trips to Vegas and different Grappler's Quest tournaments about, things that happen on different jiu-jitsu trips and stuff like that.
Do you remember? I don't even know if this is an appropriate story to tell. I guess it happened, so I should just tell it, right?
Sure.
Joe. God, all the good ones. Star Joe was in the bathtub. And it was just him in the bathtub. Everyone else was out. And I was in like plucking my eyebrows or something in the bathroom. And all of a sudden he goes, "Oh my God, Mom, what is this?"
Was it his poop?
No, it was his penis. And the red part where he had been circumcised. He goes, "I think Bailey put her lipstick on my penis."
Oh, yeah, I remember that story.
So Bailey's his cousin. And there was no lipstick being put on his penis.
Right. No, I didn't think there was.
But I don't know why he said that. And I almost poked my eyeball out with my tweezers because I was mortified. I said, "I don't think so, Joe. I think that's just where you were circumcised."
Pretty sure that was the case.
And then I had to explain circumcision.
That's a tough conversation.
For a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
I also liked the story when Ted called his Montessori teacher a crazy bitch.
Yeah, Rosa.
Yep. "Rosa, you're a crazy bitch."
That's what happens when you let your kids listen to rap music on the way to school.
I mean, is it rap music? Andre 3000?
It's rap to me.
Okay, well, it was a term of endearment, for sure. Crazy bitch. I also like the story when Stella dropped that can of tomatoes in the grocery store and said, "Shit." She was like 2.
That's what happens when you curse in front of your children.
I would never fucking curse in front of my children.
Well, if you did, they might actually imitate your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out that kids learn a lot about how to live their life by watching how their parents live theirs.
Oh, that's the scary part.
Yeah. It's the responsible part. It's the hard part, is knowing that your students and your students' parents and
Yeah.
everybody is watching you all the time and looking to see what you're doing and how you're doing it.
What about when Joe got brought home by the police 2 summers ago for a curfew violation? It was him and a handful of his buddies. And of course, you know, KPD calls me. Joe gives him my number because none of the other boys want to give their parents' numbers. And, you know, the officer said, "Well, can I just bring all the boys to your house?" And I said, "Well, of course." And then Joe shows up with an I heart, and instead of NY, like New York, it says I heart BJ's. How about that? Was that a funny story? It was kind of funny.
It's kind of funny, yeah.
I mean, only because we can look back on it now and be like, "Oh, sweet baby Joe. Oh, BJ, it's baby Joe.
Yeah.
I heart baby Joe's." That's all he meant.
I don't think that's what he meant, but he could have.
I feel like we haven't told any stories about Ricky.
There's not a lot of funny stories about Ricky.
Except that when he was 2, he looked like an old man when he wore his bucket hat and had no shirt on.
Yeah, and he had a Revenge of the Nerds laugh.
He still does, where he goes,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like he might get that from me.
I think so. Yeah, that's definitely a Wheaton trait because your sisters have it too. So
I'm trying to not do it right.
it's coming out. Yeah, Caitlin and Gentry have that real bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do.
Real bad.
Okay, all in all, good kids. I don't feel like I had a plan in raising them, just to love them and make sure that they got everything that I wanted them to get, even though I didn't know what it was. We were young when they were born, by the way.
Yeah, that's way better. It's way better. Just speaking purely from a guy who, you know, I interact with 100 kids a week, and over the last 13 years, I've probably interacted with I don't know, conservatively, probably 1,000 different kids. That's probably really conservative, actually. But yeah, there's. Look, no offense to, especially nowadays, because everybody's like, oh yeah, I gotta be CEO of Hewlett Packard and have all my ducks in a row, and then I'll have kids. And it's like, man, I mean, raising kids, that's not for old people.
No, it's not. I mean, logistically speaking, from a mom's perspective, when the kids are babies, when they're young, you have to be energetic. And I like the thought of having, Julia was at the office today with Claire, who is one of my top 5 favorite babies in this moment. So, God, that baby is so cute. But when she left, and I was like, okay, bye. I thought to myself, I am so happy that at this ripe age of 46.
That's the first time I've heard you call yourself 46. I was for sure thought I was going to hear 26. But
29 is what I tell the children.
Okay.
And then they tell me, my mom's older than you. And I'm like, I know, precious. Tell your mom that.
Yeah, kids will believe anything.
I know. Stella tells them that she's 87.
She also tells them that I'm like 110.
Well, my point is that I can't imagine being a new mom. I mean, I would do it if I had to, obviously. But I also feel like when you're younger, you care about less. Like you don't get wrapped up in the anxiety of doing things as perfectly as you do when you're 46. Are we 46 or are we 47? I don't remember.
You're going to be 47 in May.
Which means you're going to be 47 in July. Don't
Yeah,
try and act.
A couple months after you.
No, 6 weeks. Don't act like I'm robbing the cradle or some bullshit like that.
Okay. I'll let people decide for themselves based on our birth dates.
I feel like I look younger than you.
Is that true?
I think it's true.
Well, you have more hair than I do, that's for
I was
sure.
going to say, you're bald, and I'm not. But I have a colorist, so no one sees my gray.
Well, I could get a wig.
You may look silly with that.
Or I could look really good.
That's true.
You never know.
That's true.
I'm going to go shopping for a wig as soon as we get done.
There's no wig places. What's that called?
It's called a wig shop.
I know, but it's not a wig. It's like a weave. It's called a weave.
You have to have something to weave it to.
Ooh. Good point.
That would be a problem.
It would.
I'm going to need to glue on.
Don't do that.
I'm going
You're
to.
handsome as you are.
I'm going to get a glue on.
Your beard looks good, by the way.
Yeah. All my hair moved from my head to my face.
And maybe other places.
Okay. All right. Well.
Okay, so back to kids. One more thing. One more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
High point.
High point.
Yeah, the question we ask all of our guests. Tell us about a high point in parenting. And then, of course, I'm going to ask you a low point in parenting as well. And then the last question is one piece of advice.
Oh. 4 kids is a lot. And 4 kids under 4 is a lot. 4 kids under 4, 1 kid with a severe health problem is a lot. This past weekend was a high point for me. To see our daughter independent, on her own, happy, living her life the way she wants to live it, pursuing the dreams that she wants to pursue, meeting somebody that makes her happy, seeing all of that was definitely a high point. Believe it or not, this is kind of a odd one, but playing poker with her twin brother this Christmas was a high point, not because of the poker and not, part of it was the fact that I realized, oh my gosh, like he's better than me. Like not at poker per se, but he's just better than me in terms of a human being. Like he's smarter than me. He's more confident than me. That was a high point. And feeling like, and I don't mean to sound conceited, but just to being able to play a game that I'm good at, that involves money, and realizing that I can't just beat him anymore, that he's on my level. And I don't mean to make that sound like a poker thing, but poker was just the vehicle that allowed me to see where he was at in life. That was a high point. For Ted, I think the high point for me was the fact that he has a girlfriend. Like there was so much of my time, and it's weird to even talk about this, but one of my biggest concerns, and I was worried that he wouldn't get a drive, and there were so many things I was worried that he wouldn't be able to do, but the one that gave me the most grief was that he wouldn't have an intimate relationship with another human being. And I just couldn't wrap my head around that. And so seeing him with a partner, that was a high point. With Joe, just recently, again, feeling like I've connected with him on something that I like so much, like music, because we clearly don't have that when it comes to jiu-jitsu. And then, I guess I was going to talk about the song he wrote for his girlfriend, but really that wouldn't be it, because for me, the high point was I had traveled to California to coach the Wazorics at Kids Worlds this year, or I guess the last year that they let us have it. I don't remember now. I guess it was the year before.
COVID.
And I had gone to watch the UFC, so I had taken an Uber from my hotel, and on the way there, or on the way back, I had a young female driver, and she was listening to rap music, and I was like, oh, my son raps. Like I was like, had all this pride, and I was like, yeah, go to SoundCloud and look up Drip
with 2 P's.
And yeah, that's a high point for me, like, because I'm like proud of what he's accomplished, like his creativity. So I'm high points, I guess. There you go. Like I said, 4 is a lot, but I felt like I couldn't just give a high point for one of them. But those would be the 4 high points for the 4 kids.
How about low points? You don't have to give one low point for each child, but a low point in parenting.
Oh, in parenting. Yeah, I was just going to give like low points.
Were they all were losers and they sucked?
Oh, no. Things that were outside of my parenting control,
No, just give a low point for parenting.
Low point for parenting. I think a low point for me for parenting, and it wasn't how I necessarily parented my kids directly, but how I parented them indirectly. I recently lost my temper with one of their cousins, and I not that I don't think that the thing that caused me to react was not worthy. I certainly think it was, and I think that the child in question definitely deserved it. But as an adult and as somebody who wants to be an example to their kids, I regret letting my emotions and my temper get the best of me. I regret acting that way in front of them. I've apologized to both the children that were there for that, and
both of our kids.
Yeah, and that was a low point for sure. I think all the low points, if I look back on them, are situations where I lashed out and did not control my emotions, and a lot of times the circumstances, warrant some sort of a response, but the times that I act in anger or just an emotional response are the things that I regret in from a parenting context. Just being that example, and the times that I've missed the mark. There's been so many times that I think I've given them the correct example in terms of what it means to do what needs to be done, to carry the heavy weight, to get up early, to stay up late, to work hard, to take care of your business, to tell the truth, to be kind, to be protective, to take care of people that can't take care of themselves. And my low points are always the times when I just, for whatever reason, can't control my emotions. So that would be a specific example of that. But there's more examples of that same sort of thing. Those would be the low points.
What about a piece of advice for parents?
I guess what I've been saying, which is, do as you say. I mean, if you think something is important enough to ask your child to do it, make sure that you're doing it in your own life.
Like making your bed.
Whatever.
I guess you've never asked the kids to make their bed.
I don't think I ever have asked the kids to make the bed. That's not on my priority list as far as important things to do. But if I say, be honest, always tell the truth, then I need to make sure that when they look at me, they go, yeah, Dad's a lot of things. He can be a jerk, or he's mean, or he's this, or he's that. But I don't ever want them to look at me and say, yeah, and he doesn't always tell the truth, So I think decide what it is that you value, what's important to you. Mm-hmm. And I would assume that if you want your kids to act a certain way and value certain things, that those things would also be important to you. And then just lead by example, show them, don't tell them, like, they're not going to listen anyways. They're going to look, they're going to watch, they're going to see, like.
That's good.
Is it your turn now, or was this an interview of me?
I mean, it could be my turn.
Well, I mean.
High point. Actually, recently, high point is when all the kids were home for Christmas and we were in the kitchen, and so the boys were there and their girlfriends were there, and Joey, Ricky's bestie, and Stella, and they not only were having so much fun together, which is a high point for me, that they love each other, and this is the family that I feel like I had wanted and I've envisioned, but they were teasing each other, and it was in such a loving manner that it was like every word that came out of everyone's mouth just grew the love in that room so much. And none of it had anything to do with me at all. I was in the room, but I was kind of on the outside because they were just interacting with each other. And I thought, this is perfect. Like, they're independent, they're loving to each other, but also they're confident in themselves, and they're funny. God, they're funny as fuck. And it was a high point for me. I don't think I had anything to do with that, but it was a relief and a high point for me. And then low point, I would echo what you said. Anytime I've lost my temper and let my emotions, how many broken wooden spoons have we had in the last 20 years? I will snap those mother effers on the side of a door, and it's only because I lose my temper. And I think that emotions can be difficult to control, and more often than not, I have failed when I needed to succeed in controlling them. Which is, I guess, also why I feel so relieved when there's those high points where I think, oh God, I didn't fuck them up too much.
Yeah, they turned out pretty good.
Not bad.
And what was your parenting advice?
Probably to look within. That more often than not, when I've hit a bump in the road or, had a low point or even had a high point, that if I flip that mirror back on myself and say, okay, what's going on with me? Like, what do I need to sort out? And I owe my kids everything, right? Isn't that the opening page of my book, Rough Around the Edges, A Memoir on Motherhood?
Mm-hmm.
To Ted, Stella, Ricky, and Joe, thank you. Because I owe them my whole life. I wouldn't be who I am today had it not been for their existence as my primary motivator. I think that's a wrap.
All right.
Thanks for being here. And by the way, thanks for doing such a good job at being their dad.
You're welcome. That's the opening page of my book.
What's the title of your book?
How to Be the Best Husband.
The Best Husband?
Mm-hmm. Opening page is dedicated to you. To Kisa. You're welcome.
You're funny. Thanks for joining us today. If you want more information about the Growing Gorillas martial arts program for kids, please visit growinggorillas.com.
And if you're interested in finding an SBG near you in the state of Montana, please visit us at sbgmontana.com.
See you soon.
Stay cold, Pony Boy.
Peace out, Girl Scout.
Catch you on the flip-flop.
Catch you on the flipper dipper.
After a while, crocodile.
I don't know anymore.
See you later, alligator.